I do want to bring in a key fellow watching all of this, I'm sure, with great interest, Congressman Jim Jordan, fine state, Ohio. First, Congressman, on these market developments, a lot of people are saying the Trump rally continues because of growing optimism that he's going to bring big things. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, any time you can throw out the tax code, which we know is an impediment to economic growth, get rid of the ridiculous regulations, which we know is an impediment to economic growth, and Obamacare, which I believe is a big impediment to growth as well. And I think people see, investors see, Americans see, business owners see, taxpayers see that we are going to be able to create an environment that's conducive to growth. Remember, this is the first president, Barack Obama, the first president since World War II not to have any year, not even one single year of 3% or higher annual growth rate. So that's how bad it's been. So they see that that's the optimism out there. New tax code, one that understands we need a flatter, fairer, simpler system on both the personal and corporate side, one that says the ridiculous regulations need to go, and one that says, look, it's time to get rid of Obamacare. That's the model they see, and that's why I think you're seeing what you're witnessing on Wall Street and across the country.
Do you pay attention much to the Dow or the markets or your colleagues when we are sprinting ahead like this and the surge we've seen since Mr. Trump's election? Or do you guys try not to get distracted?
I mean, you follow it, but what I pay attention to are the voters back in the 4th District of Ohio, which I think is what we should be focused on. What are the families, taxpayers, and business owners, what are they telling us? What did they send us here to do? That's what we should be focused on. And I think they sense optimism. They feel optimism. That's a good thing for our country. Now let's go do what we told them we were going to do when they gave us the privilege to serve.
You know, yesterday, Congressman, I had Senator Rand Paul with me, and we were talking about the health care sort of rework, repeal, and he was saying you should go slow on this, especially on fixing it, because the way Republicans are planning to do so now through a budget resolution isn't the means to do it. This is what he told me, and I want you to react to it. Rand Paul yesterday. When you look at the numbers, Senator, there's not a lot of wiggle room for Republicans in the Senate on this particular matter. 52 Republicans, 48 Democrats, if we just go by the traditional math. So now it's down to 51. A couple of other Republicans could follow you, and all of a sudden this doesn't happen. They come back to you and say, Rand Paul killed our effort to kill Obamacare. You say what?
Well, I would say, why don't we pass a budget that balances in the foreseeable future and repeal Obamacare? You know, they're not mutually exclusive. If they came to me and they couldn't pass it, guess what? They would have to negotiate with conservatives, and instead of the establishment always get what they want, conservatives would have a say. So I talked to the House Freedom Caucus today, and I told them the same thing. Let's band together and say enough's enough.
What do you make of that, Congressman? Simultaneous, repeal, replace. At the same time.
I think it makes sense. Look, we should repeal and replace Obamacare as quickly as possible, but we should do it right. I mean, that's our job. It shouldn't take more than this Congress to do so. I mean, there's some talk out there, well, we need such a long glide path or a long ramp up, whatever you want to call it. I understand we need some time, but it better happen this Congress, because that's what the American people sent us here to do.
But when he made his pitch to you, Congressman, you're part of that House Freedom Caucus and a pretty important part.
Sure.
When he made his pitch to you, were you persuaded to vote against the means by which Republicans want to get this thing killed?
You got to understand, it's kind of 4 parts to this thing.
I understand.
Next week is the budget concurrent resolution, which sets up the process to use reconciliation, the big fancy term we use here in Washington, so you can avoid the 60-vote hurdle in the Senate. So you got the budget vote next week. The reconciliation vote will happen sometime next month or sometime in the near future, where we actually repeal Obamacare. Then you have the replacement vote, which is going to have to can't go in reconciliation. I think, as Rand says, that replacement vote should happen at the same time as the repeal vote, and then you have the effective date of both. The effective date when Obamacare is completely gone and we have a real market out there.
But you're happy with the process the way it is now. It sounds a little Byzantine to people who aren't steeped in Washington parliamentary maneuvers and all, but it was that apparently ticked off Rand Paul and said there's a better way to do this. You're arguing for the time being there's not.
Rand is making the argument that doing replacement and repeal at the same time makes sense. I think he's right there. I think that does make sense, and we're trying to push our leadership in that direction, push our conference in that direction. And I think our conference, many members of our Republican conference, think that makes sense too. But that's still, the effective date of that is going to be sometime later on. This is this idea, you got to do it right, and you need some ramp-up time so that the market can adjust, and we can actually have a market in healthcare. Right now we've got a Washington bureaucratic-driven model. We want a patient-centered, market-driven model, and you're going to need some time to do that. So that effective date, so when we repeal it, it's going to be effective at some future date. But what I'm saying is that date shouldn't be too far in the future. It should happen this Congress.
You know, while we're looking at the Dow, Congressman, one of the things that has come up is whether the markets are getting ahead of themselves here, a little bit too optimistic. I mean, there's a big tall order of expectations on the part of investors and Americans in general about the incoming administration and what you Republicans can do in the House and the Senate. Do you ever feel the pressure of that it's too much, that you want to tamp down those expectations? Because right now they're sprinting ahead expecting you to dramatically lower taxes, get a lot of this regulatory hassle off people back immediately.
No, I mean, look, and I don't think the American people feel like, oh, there's pressure on members of Congress. The American people have had the pressure the last 8 years. They're looking for relief. They elected us to come here and make the changes we told them we were going to make. Let's get about doing that as quickly as possible, but let's do it in the right way as well. I think they understand that. So that's my focus. You know, look, there's pressure in everything. There's pressure in your job to make sure you do it right. There's pressure in the families who run a business back home, the moms who are working harder, the teachers.
I don't have a market on tenterhooks with everything I say. But boy, everything you say, yeah. Everything you guys do, yeah. I guess what I'm saying is, given the health care issue and the fact that maybe not everyone is quite on the same page with how to go about dismantling it, do you think that some disappointment is inevitable?
I don't think so. I think the American people sent us here to repeal it. Let's repeal it, every single bit of it. Let's put in place a model that empowers families, patients, doctors, communities, not one, as you know, like Obamacare, like the Affordable Care Act, which empowered this town. That's what people voted against. They don't want power here. They want it back in their hands. And remember never forget this fact. Everything we were told about this law turned out to be false. Like your plan, I call them the 9 lies of Obamacare. Like your plan, keep your plan. Like your doctor, keep your doctor. Deductibles will go down. Premiums will go down. Premiums will go down, average of $2,500. The website will work. The website's secure. Emergency room visits will go down. And oh, these co-ops that were created, 23 of them, they're going to be wonderful. 18 of them have already went bankrupt. So there's 9 lies right there that we were told. So when we talk about getting rid of Obamacare, you got to understand the context. Health care will be better and cost less when Obamacare is gone. That's the premise I start from. So let's focus on doing that. Forget about the pressure. Let's just do the job we were sent here to do.
And real quickly while I have you, because this too is so crucial to these markets now, 27 points or so away from 20,000. The idea of big tax cuts, everyone seems to expect that they're coming, but I hear less talk of them, maybe given the fact that we've been so focused on the health care thing. What can you tell us?
No, we're going to get to that too, but I mean, the health care debate got kicked off a couple. Soon, probably in the budget we're going to do in April, I think you'll start to see us focus on tax cuts there. But health care was always going to be teed up.
So in the first 100 days, it is not inevitable that...
Oh, I'm not saying that. We're going to get to that too. We can, do... Some people wonder this, but I think Congress can focus on a couple issues too. But the Obamacare debate got kicked off when Vice President-elect Pence and President Obama came to Capitol Hill, and we had sort of these competing meetings and competing press conferences. That was the kickoff of this debate. So we're in the midst of the health care debate. But sure, we're going to do tax reform because, again, that's something the voters sent us here to do. That's something we told them we were going to do. We're going to do that as well.
All right, Congressman, thank you very much.